What's going on, my brother? Welcome back.
What's up, man? I'm glad to
What's
be
up?
here. Glad to give my 2 cents of the World Cup now that we've had, we're at this point, we're into the round of it last eight. So it's been
Yeah,
a tournament, I must say.
yeah, time's flying by. Hard to believe we're already down to 8 teams. But I want to I just want to see where you want to take it. I know if we went from 48 to 8, so we said by the 40. Yeah, that's probably the quickest I've ever done math in my life. Um, but yeah, you know what, man? I would love to get your thoughts on just the tournament at large, and then obviously your the countries that you've come on here and talked about in the past that you were looking forward to watching, and your thoughts on how the tournament has played out.
Yeah, I mean, overall thoughts on the tournament. Honestly, I'd say for like 90% of the games so far, I think everyone's been pretty close. It's been nitty-gritty, especially once it's hit the knockout stages. I mean, today was just a thriller in both games. It's funny because I thought today would be the boringest out of all the round of 16 matches day. It turned out to probably be the most fun one. I mean, depending on your perspective and if you're neutral, um, pure excitement. And I, I don't believe in that these things are scripted. I think, from a pure neutral perspective, it was entertaining and fun. And you have to give your hats off to not only the winning teams, but just even the losing teams like Egypt and Colombia in this matter. I mean, those were fun games. And man, I mean, this to me, this has been one of the I think this has been the most fun tournament so far that I've watched. Started watching World Cup games. I started watching in 2010. So I mean, leading up to this point, this has been the most fun. I can't say it's been the best one so far yet, but it's getting there. And with all these knockout rounds games coming up, I mean, it's gonna get even better now. And so, what are your thoughts on it so far?
Yeah, man, I think I don't know. I think my thoughts are all over the place, to be honest with you, because I think in any given conversation, I could tell you multiple things. Just depending on the time of day and what day you get me. I'd probably tell you something. Because I think all of it. So I always like to say the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I think there've been a lot of things that have been positive and exciting, and I think there've also been some things that have really drove me nuts and some frustrating things, and I feel like it's been the best and the worst of what sports are. I feel like it's been all over the place.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'd say it. I mean, there's not enough time in the day to really quantify all of that. But I think you mentioned today's matches. I thought both of them were great in their own respective rights. Like you mentioned, I think a lot of the matches have been competitive. Even if up until now, there really maybe haven't been a ton of upsets, if you will. At least there's been they made them work for it. Some of the favorites and whatnot have had to dig a little deep. And I think that's been exciting in that aspect. But
Yeah,
uh,
it's not blowouts. Like, everyone was expecting France to blow out Paraguay. That was a
yeah,
nail-biting game.
Paraguay
Everyone
played them tough, dude.
Yeah, haram ball, but, it
That's
to a certain point, it worked. I mean, they had to rely on a penalty to win the game. And
Yeah.
then today with Egypt, I mean, they were up 2-0, man. I As a Messi fan, I'm not an Argentina fan, but as a Messi fan, I knew it wouldn't end this way. I knew at least they would try to tie it, but I didn't think they would win it in 90 minutes. And so each team has worked for it. England had to work for it. I mean, we'll get into Mexico's perspective, but England had to work for it. Who else did we have here? Norway had to work for it. Spain had to work for it. So, I mean, the only game in the round of 16 where it was a blowout was Morocco, Canada, and Belgium, USA. I mean, other than that, each favorite, although they've advanced, most of them have had to work for it. It's I think the world is catching up to those, heavy hitters. And I think that's what ultimately FIFA wanted in the expansion of 48 teams is to see, what can other countries do to the bigger top dogs and see if they can put up a fight. Maybe not necessarily win, but at least give that entertainment and that hope and feel towards it. And I mean, so far it's been pretty successful on FIFA's end in terms of expanding it to 48 teams. And I was a skeptic about expanding it. I was like, this is a tournament that should be earned to what was it, 32 teams originally. So, you have to earn it in qualifying to get there. And I mean, with the expansion, it's been successful. I've seen people fighting for it and it's great for the game, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's definitely, um, like you mentioned, having these countries be able to, compete. I think probably I wouldn't be, I mean, I'm sure it won't be the only time we talk about it, but like, well, once they moved to 48, they were never going to go back from 48. Now it's just kind of a matter of do they grow from 48?
Yeah.
Uh, which we can talk about that maybe another time. But yeah, I think just from a competitive standpoint, you wanna see, you don't want, you don't want, if it ends up being all the favorites that win, you at least don't want it to be something where it's like, they just steamroll through everybody and it's just kind of like, you
Exactly.
want there to be competition because at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's a competition. And like, you mentioned like, Paraguay, like they might not have the same level of talent per se, but they can make it difficult. They can compete and they can, I mean, dude, they played France about as well as you could possibly play them.
Yeah.
They did a great, did they win? No, but Cape Verde and Egypt gave Argentina a hell of a run for their money.
Yeah,
It
man.
came super close, both of them, and we go down the list. I mean, they might, I always want to root for the underdog and the ones that maybe don't get as much love, and I think that's a consistent thought. But I'm also not oblivious to the fact that other people don't always maybe necessarily see it the same way that I do. Like, uh, so I think, yeah, I don't disagree with anything that you said. Like, I think, if anything, it's just like multiple things can be true at once. Like, there've been a lot of successes within the tournament for sure. Like, um, you don't want to lose sight of one and not the other. You want to be able to. So yeah, I think the expansion of it has been. I think there was maybe, like you mentioned, some skepticism about whether. Like could Curacao or Haiti be able to compete?
Right.
Or one of these, and you, maybe outside of a couple of blowouts here and there, um, most of the sides have competed, and uh, you know, you want to see more countries be able to close the gap, like you mentioned, and maybe it's not fully there yet right now, but maybe you get it to a point where, maybe Egypt almost beats Argentina today, but
Yeah.
maybe in 12 years they meet again and Egypt get it done. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. It's all about closing the gap, and the rest of the world is catching up fast to these top nations. I mean, look, the Dutch got out by, I mean, Morocco's a great side, but, 10 years ago, would you picture Morocco beating the Dutch? No. I would have never predicted that. And then same thing 10 years ago, would you predict Norway beating Brazil? No, absolutely not. And so these nations are catching up quite fast to these big historical nations that have won it in the past or have become close in Netherlands' case. And so it's exciting for the game. And I was talking to a colleague today. He's told me, he said that he doesn't watch American or soccer, international football, but he got excited for the USA. He's an American at heart, and he got excited for them. He's like, I never watched soccer, but just by the atmosphere here of hosting a World Cup got me amplified. And I think that's true for all the other American fans. I mean, I've never seen that many American fans come out to support their team in Copa America or Gold Cup, or even in every 4 years during the World Cup where it's in other nations hosting. I haven't seen this much support ever. And even though they got blown out by Belgium based on their own mistakes, I think Poach did a good job of reinvigorating that kind of enthusiasm and hope that the U.S. could go further than they normally did.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point too. It's definitely you've got a lot of people who maybe don't watch the sport intently. They're not plugged in watching the club seasons and all that. They might not even know any of the players or anything like that. But the World Cup and what it represents, and the uniqueness of the event, you kind of sometimes you get those people that maybe wouldn't typically be watching, but they tune in. And I think that that's part of the cool thing about sports too, is it can get people to get into it even if you don't really give a fuck about them to begin with. They're diehards, and then there are people who don't really, they just happen to watch, and there's all sorts of people, right? I mean, so you get to celebrate all the different levels of it. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, and
but
it's
yeah,
exciting.
what happened?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's exciting, man. I mean, you have everyone that's, they have their highs of, happiness and joy, and then they have people in their lows and, crushing defeats. I mean,
Yeah,
I think this is a good transition to talk about, my perspective as a Mexico supporter from Mexico and England. I know we heard our good friend Malik talk about England's perspective, and Tuchel, and I 100% agree with what Malik said. I listened to that podcast earlier yesterday, and that was a great recording by you two. And the point that he hit was, had Southgate been manager still for England, I think they crumble and I think they lose this game. But with Tuchel, I mean, he made the right choices. From a Mexican perspective, I mean, man, I I think I saw another video where which one hurt more, if it was this one or 2014 Brazil, with the Dutch, where it was Nora Penal. I mean, I'm gonna go with this one because I think Mexico had it for the taking, and they had it, man. If they just had tied it, they would have won it in extra time because, Tuchel subbed off most of his attack for defensive players. You're up a man already. Um, it was there for the taking, and, as a Mexican supporter, I'm proud. I'm proud. They fought hard. I I wish they had not committed those errors that they did. I mean, first goal that Jude scored in from the header. I mean, whatever, that happens. But the second one and the third one, if you remember the second one, I believe Mora gave away the ball in the midfield because either nobody told him that. I think it was Kane coming up on him to put the pressure, to come in, or he just didn't turn fast enough and got the ball stolen. But those mistakes, you just can't have those against higher quality teams as in England, because as a individual player perspective, England blows out Mexico in terms of quality of players. But as a team, and when you're at home, anything can happen. And unfortunately, he gave away the ball in the midfield. Great, counter, and that's what Tuchel. I think that's what his plan was to hit Mexico on the counter because they know Mexico is such a ball heavy, possession based team that he's willing to sacrifice possession in order to hit on the counter. And, nice pass by Kane to, cross it into Jude to finish for. I mean, it wasn't an easy goal because I mean he didn't. It was a tap in, but it was there was much more that he had to do to hit that in there. And then the third goal, man. I mean, as a defender, I forget if it was Alvarez or Montes was still in the game, but you can't let Pickford punt it all the way to the other side of the goal or the 18-yard box and let the ball go through to let Anthony Gordon make a move, cut across, and then the goalie foul him, and of course that's a penalty. I don't disagree there, but those simple mental mistakes you can't do because these teams will punish you, and that's ultimately what happened. And I mean, Mexico each time when they were down 2-0, Quinones came back and fired that goal right in. So that showed grit and that changed the momentum. And as well with that red card, rightfully so, it is a red card. Studs are up. You can't argue that. Even if the right back wasn't intending to hurt the player, it's still a red card. So, and then the penalty given to Raul, I mean, Raul is one of those players where you just know he's going to make it. I can't say the same thing with my guy from Argentina, Messi. I mean, he's missed 2 penalties now in this World Cup, and that's unacceptable. But from back to Raul, I mean, I knew he was going to bury it. And so, you're down 3-2 and you're just Javier Aguirre's. This is where Tuchel took the advantage, and Javier Aguirre didn't make the right substitutions, honestly. I mean, he put in Santi Jimenez, who's a striker. He put a bunch of other, taller guys into the middle because they just kept punting the ball and crossing it in. And as the game went on, I believe maybe it was the 70th minute, after the hydration break, the quality and service was just depleting. And I was like, come on, guys, you got to try something different other than crossing it from, who knows where, because clearly England's just going to get to it and, hit it back to you. And so you got to dribble, or you got to, go more towards the inside of the 18-yard box to, dribble past anyone. And, England did great. I mean, I'm not a fan of Jude Bellingham, but he played the best game I've ever seen him play for England, Real Madrid, Dortmund, list goes on. This guy played his heart out. I mean, Tuchel, and this is what good coaching does. Tuchel challenged him to, be a better player, not just be a great offensive, number 10 attacking midfielder, but, you need to get back and you need to defend. And, that clearance on Montes where it could have been, I believe at that time they were down 2-1, could have tied it right there and changed the game completely. And then, Tuchel brought in Stones, and another big guy that I can't remember off the top of my head that, he plays in Premier League, but, tall guy, defender, very well respected. And he made the right changes. And, credit to England. I'm just, as a Mexican fan, I'm proud for them. They fought hard. I would much rather have, I never want to lose, but if I'm going to lose, I want them fighting for it versus getting blown out, kind of like what the U.S. did and just giving up. So, I mean, now Aguirre steps down, and that was always the plan, was kind of Aguirre to take control of this team in 2026 and have Rafa Marquez, the great legend, take him as his assistant and give him the keys to 2030. And so, Mexican fans have a lot to be prideful and look forward to in 2030 with Mora as a 17-year-old, more years under his belt, more, wisdom, and, hopefully won't make those type of mistakes that he did, in this knockout game. And you'll have other players, stick around, might be older, but you'll have some younger players that are coming through the system that have optimism, hope into, getting to the quarterfinals, because, Mexico's curse is always the round of 16. So, we'll see how it goes. I'm proud the way they played, and, I can't say anything about anything negative. The fans were behind the team. This was kind of like with the U.S. There was more support, this World Cup than any other World Cup, because you're in home soil. Everyone's just, electric about it. And, the Javier Aguirre, I believe his nickname is El Bombero, which translates to fireman. He's always putting out fires, and he really did compared to 2022, where we were under Tata Martino, and we had gone out of the group stage, which hadn't been done in decades in Mexican history. So coming from 2022 to 2026, this was a success in its own way. Would love to have participated against Norway, and see how that will battle it out. But this is sports, and you move forward.
That was really well said, man. I think you provide a very valuable perspective there. Um, Beyond Mexico, you talked a little bit about Argentina. I know, you also have an affiliation of sorts with España as well.
Yes.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts about what they've been able to do so far and what you think is going to happen moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, we'll go with Spain first. I mean, that Spain Portugal game was, you know, it, it's always that first half where teams are always trying to feel it out, and nobody wants to score first because then the whole tactics change. So that first 45 minutes, I think we can both agree that was like a sleeper right there. But turning into, the second half, it's coaching that comes down to, just like in Tuchel versus Aguirre, it came down to Martinez and De La Fuente, and De La Fuente made the right subs, man. And Martinez again failed to, match his opponent, whether it was him in the Belgium team and now Portugal. He didn't come up with the right substitutions. And look, with Portugal and Ronaldo, I think Ronaldo's at a point where he can't play 90 minutes because he's just a liability on defensive purposes. I have no question that he can still score a ball, but when it gets nitty and gritty like this type of game was, you have to have the guts to sub your star player out, because I think he had maybe a couple of shots on goal. One of them, he hit pretty nicely, but it was right to Unai Simon. And you gotta make those substitutions, kind of like what he did for versus Croatia, where he put in Gonzalo Ramos. I mean, this guy is clutch. He comes in clutch for PSG, and he just signed a move to AC Milan, and he's clutch for Portugal. I think I saw a stat where he had more goals in the clutch than Ronaldo or something like that. Someone will have to fact check me on that. But you got to make the right substitutions, and with De La Fuente, that guy did. He put in Mikel Merino to score. He put in Ferran Torres, who's assisted him on that goal. I mean, it's all about tactics, and you know Spain still hasn't hit their stride yet, and I'm waiting for them to see that. I got to see them. I had the pleasure of seeing them live versus Austria here in Los Angeles, and of course, they should beat Austria comfortably, which they did 3-0. But other than that game, and I believe the Saudi game, they've just, I haven't seen their full stride yet, and I'm waiting to see that. I mean, Lamine, I think he's fully fit now. I think everyone can see that he's fully fit now, but he hasn't hit his stride yet. So if Spain's gonna, advance, and ultimately if they can beat France, they're gonna rely heavily on Lamine, and he can't be quite like what he has been the last game or two. And so luckily Spain has this depth where they can put in different players to play different positions, with Mikel Merino as playing as a striker or a false nine, Dani Olmo playing as an attacking 10. Gavi can play left wing. So they have a lot of players that they can mix and match with, which gives them an advantage over most nations. I mean, other than maybe France, because they have the most depth among any of these nations that are still standing. But I'm interested to see how they play versus Belgium, because all of a sudden Belgium comes to life now. Rudy Garcia, made the right moves. He sat Doku, he sat Kevin De Bruyne, and it looked, turned out very well and promising changes for him. So it all comes to tactics. With Portugal now, you know, supposedly Ronaldo said this is his last World Cup. I have yet to see that, honestly. Once 2030 comes around, we'll see what he says there. But they're entering a new phase where maybe they don't have the pressure of feeding Ronaldo as much, and now they can maybe play a little more freely. We'll see how it goes. I believe they appointed uh, Ronaldo's former coach at Al Nassr as their Portuguese head coach, which was kind of fast if it is true. So we'll see how that works. And given his age, I believe he's one of the older coaches. I'm kind of shocked that they went so fast on that move, but we'll see. What are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I think as far as Spain, Portugal, you said it best, dude. I think it wasn't really that surprising of how it played out. I felt like both teams, like you mentioned, they were going to set up in a way where they didn't want to open things up too much and go down a goal. They wanted to feel each other out. It was like watching a boxing match where they just kind of jab a little bit and they
Yeah,
just kind of feel each other out for a couple of rounds, and they're just trying to get it, to the last round, and either they get a decision, maybe it goes to the distance, and it comes down to the judges' scorecard. Just like if it goes 120 minutes, there's penalties. I feel like in Portugal's case, I feel like they were content to ride it out for 120 minutes. It just happened that, um, something that's happened a couple of times already in this tournament, whether it was Canada, South Africa, or Brazil, Japan, you're in stoppage time in the second half. You're about to go to an extra 30 minutes, and, one side finds a winner. Um, and in this case, it happened to be Spain. Looks, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Spain haven't even conceded a goal the whole tournament, right?
yeah, you're right. That's a
You
good
know,
shout out, and I
I'm
think
pretty
it's
sure
a
I
it's
saw
a
something
record, right?
where Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw something where Unai Simon has broken the record for most consecutive minutes
Yeah,
at the World Cup without giving up a goal. Um, so even without maybe a healthy Nico Williams and maybe not the most talented Spanish team that's ever been assembled. The ability that they have to play within their means, they know what their strengths are. They're always going to have
absolutely.
a chance against anybody. If you can play like that, you're gonna have a chance. Like even if they don't win the whole thing, they're gonna be tough to beat no matter who they're playing because they don't beat themselves, and they play in a way that's always gonna give them a chance. And then from Portugal's perspective, I think you know uh, we talk a lot about managers and regardless of the sport, like coaches and like that's such a big part of it. And with Portugal, you mentioned Roberto Martinez. It just they didn't have that cohesion as a unit. They have a lot of individually talented players, probably one of the most talented teams in the world, but they never played like it throughout the tournament.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. It,
they
it,
weren't terrible. I mean, their worst is better than a lot of people's best, but there was a level that they did not get. There wasn't really much cohesion. And you mentioned, they kind of moved on pretty quick. We'll see what type of adjustments are made moving forward. And um, I don't know. It just felt like a combination of tactics, and it felt like there was a lack of cohesion. Like, oftentimes it's not just about the talent. It's like this: can the talent come together? Can the coaching staff make that talent fit? Like, there's so many factors to go into it.
yeah.
They play the matches. That's why I don't play it on paper.
Right.
Um,
And kind of back to your point, they're supposed to have the most talented midfield, which it's funny enough, two of the three of their midfielders play together, and then you have Bruno Fernandes who had the season of his life. I mean, most
yeah,
assists in Premier League history. Like what the hell? How
yeah.
does that not fit together? And
And I and I
he
and that's really where it comes down to the managerial side of it. Like, it's up to you as a manager. I think sometimes we overestimate and we underestimate the impact of coaching because at the end of the day, you did mention the Ronaldo part of it. I do think that that was a big factor as well, just in the sense that when after every match there's some form of like piece about Ronaldo coming out, like they're constantly asking these guys like Ronaldo, Ronaldo, Ronaldo. Like I think it just it creates a lot of distractions from the main goal of what they're trying to accomplish. Um, I know Ronaldo said it was going to be his last World Cup. I guess, like to your point, I mean, I guess you'll see it when we believe it. But I mean, it was what, like 41, 42.
Yeah,
Uh, but you
it'll
know
be
what?
what,
Shit, if anybody's
45?
going to play at 45, 46 in the seventh World Cup, it'd probably be that guy.
Right.
Uh,
No, no doubt. I
you
mean,
know,
but the thing is, can he accept being in a bench role? Honestly, can he? For
I
the
mean,
sake
at
of
this
the
point,
team.
yeah, I mean, it's a good. I mean, he did, against Croatia. I know he got subbed out early, and he didn't look too thrilled about that, but they won.
Right.
Um,
And the sub scored.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's tough for him, man. I mean, he's, I feel like you mentioned like the midfield. There wasn't they didn't, and maybe a lot of it, as much as it's on the manager, it's also on the players. The players at the end of the day, the manager can't play. Roberto Martinez, maybe it wasn't the best managerial choice, but also, they have a lot of talented players, man. I mean, you mentioned the midfield, and then you got guys like, Rafael Leao, and you mentioned Gonzalo Ramos, and Pedro
Yeah,
Neto, João Felix, and then obviously like Nuno Mendes and all these guys. Like, it's not like these are a bunch of bums. Bernardo Silva, these are really good players, man.
yeah.
And sometimes it's on the it's also on the players. They didn't really. But yeah, I think a lot of these guys, obviously Ronaldo notwithstanding, they're pretty young. Like Vitinha and these guys, they'll be back, and we'll see if they can learn from it. But um,
Yeah, in look, you can't put all the blame on Roberto Martinez or Ronaldo. As you're right, the coach can't play, on the field, and what really lacked from Portugal's perspective was their wingers, man. I
yeah,
I to be honest, I can't remember a goal that was scored by Joao Felix, Rafael Leao, or Pedro Neto.
I just feel like yeah, I just yeah, Roberto Martinez definitely. It doesn't, there's certain, it's like when we talk about the Netherlands and Ronald Koeman, like there's certain managers that just don't really inspire you too much. Like,
Right.
not an insult, like, but I mean, it's just like you just got to call a spade a spade. Like, but at the same time, yeah, they can't go out there and play either. But also it's tough for Portugal because you know uh, that's a quarterfinal, semifinal type matchup in a round of 16, and
Yeah.
would Portugal going to win the whole thing? Probably not. They didn't really look that great throughout the tournament, but it's still a tough matchup to play Spain in the round of 16.
Right. But you can't, it's unacceptable to have two draws in your group stage, which is ultimately what landed them to face Spain in round of
That's
16.
second place, right? Yeah, you're right. They could have been on the other side of the bracket, but
Right.
you know what? But also, going to that point, like, to be honest with you, even if they would have won the group, assuming it played out the same way, and it would have been, I mean, obviously, there's no way of knowing for certain. We're just playing hypothetically, but just like the Swiss were able to get it done against Colombia, the Swiss probably could have gotten it done against Portugal too.
Yeah, no, no, fair enough. You can't put in perspective, on paper, Portugal's going to beat Switzerland. You're right. You can't say that, but you're much more likely to
Yeah, yeah,
beat,
yeah,
you know,
exactly. To beat them than you would against Spain. But yeah, dude, I think with Spain, it's just one of those things where even if they find ways to kind of get it done, and even if it hasn't been their best tournament, it hasn't been super pretty. I don't think
right.
anybody really cares as long as you get the results. And
Yeah, absolutely.
they're a win against Belgium away from the semifinals, and I think if you would have told anybody beforehand that Spain are going to the semifinals, I don't think anybody would really care how it looks. And then, I know there was the big hoopla and controversy about them drawing with Cape Verde, But I think as the tournament's gone on, it's continued to prove that that was less about Spain. It was more to do with Cape Verde.
Yeah, fair enough. No, I agree. And kind of back to your point where about Unai Simona, it's funny because Spain has three world class keepers, and I remember because Unai Simona is De Fuente's guy. He's been with them since he's been their manager, and there's a lot of controversy. You had David Raya, winning Gold Glove of the Premier League. Joan Garcia had a fucking heck of a season for Barcelona, saved him in so many matches, and so, I gotta give De La Fuente, credit. I mean, like you said, it's all about tactics and sticking to your guts, and it's paid off with Unai Simon. And every time there's been a chance for the opposing team to score, I'll be honest, he's stopped a lot of them, or he's read each play where he's gone up and punched the ball or caught it in the right moment. I haven't seen him slip like other goalkeepers in this tournament, for example, like Matt Freeze yesterday, where he just made a bonehead mistake and gave the ball away to a goal. So credit to them and their back line. I mean, it's been solid with Kurbasi, Laporte. Cucurella has been having a fantastic tournament. Porro, man, he's it's funny because I don't watch Spurs, but he's looking like the top right back based off this tournament, just from seeing him live in the Austria game where he was all over the place, and even yesterday he's been great. So, you're right. Things aren't. It doesn't matter how you get to the final, or if you win it. It's it has to be. It's going to be ugly, and there's no perfect game. But they're getting it done in many other ways. Not relying on Lamine, and unlike in Argentina's case, which this is a good transition over. Yeah, I've said this to you offline. It's Argentina cannot rely on Messi to be their goal contributor, whether that's in goals or assists, because it hasn't caught up to them, but it's been damn close, man. Twice they've escaped, upsets, and Messi's carried them, yes, but then again, they had to rely on, at least in the Cape Verde game, defenders to score. And then on today's game, the first goal that was scored was off Romero, who's a defender too. I mean, man, what a night and day difference it is for 2022 to 2026 by not having Angel Di Maria right there. He's been, he's more valuable than you think he is in this World Cup, because, I mean, other than I still haven't seen Lautaro score. I haven't seen Julian score. Other than Messi and defenders, it's just this header from Enzo that scored their winning goal today. So, Argentina has to be very careful on the way they play now Switzerland, and then if they advance, England or Norway. So it's scary for them. And if somehow they advance to the final, they will lose to France if this is the way they're going to play. France will punish them, or Spain, whoever it is. And so, it was a great game today, but you can't rely on Messi doing everything for you. He's just not. He's not 35 or even 30 years old where he could be everything for you. But at 39, this guy he's pulling his heart out for everything. I think he was crying after the game, even though he won, because he knows, this is probably his last one, but it meant a lot to him.
Yeah, I think yeah, kind of like they've been kind of the anti, the 180 of Spain. Spain haven't conceded. Argentina, they're just they're living by the what's the saying? Live by the sword, die by the sword. Like
Yeah.
they're out there, and they are confident that they're going to score goals, and it doesn't matter who they're playing. And um, you know, uh, I mean, credit to Messi too, man. I mean, obviously, I know you mentioned he missed the two penalties, including the one earlier today, but in both of the matches that he missed the penalty, he scored in both
Yeah.
of those matches. It just feels like Argentina in many ways, it's, if, all those guys fit together really well. They have guys that are willing to do the dirty work and because it's not like Messi's out there. Messi's, especially at this stage, like, they have guys that can make up the gaps for him in other areas, and then they allow him to do his thing on the other end.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you see him, he's walking there. I mean, he
Yeah,
has other.
exactly. He's conserving his energy as best he can, and not it's not that he's obviously just like walking around or whatever, but
Light
they fit
jog.
together because not every team has players that are willing to do that.
Right. I mean,
Like
you
not
got
every
him.
not every there's some teams have the talent, but they don't have guys that are willing to like do the dirty work and Argentina, that's kind of like the reason why they've been able to have so much success is because, even if Messi's the one that's creating the majority of the goals, whether he's scoring or assisting or just his presence, um, it's a lot of their success is due to the other guys that are out there that are doing all the things that he's not doing that don't involve scoring goals. So, um, you know, uh, they've had to you mentioned they've definitely been kind of playing with fire a little bit, and if they're gonna want to win the whole thing like they did last World Cup, they're gonna have to stop playing with fire a little bit. They're gonna have to, but and a completely 180. Look, a win's a win. They won, and they're gonna get the Swiss now. We'll see how that goes in the quarterfinals. That should be a really interesting one because you'd have to imagine that it's going to be another tough game for them, and they might overcome the Swiss, but Cape Verde and Egypt, the Swiss are no joke either, so it'll be
Yeah.
competitive.
Yeah, no, it's definitely gonna be a battle, and it's funny because part of me thinks that they actually wanted Colombia to advance because, you know, they know that opponent, they know how they're gonna play Colombia because 'cause they're carnival rivals, and with Swiss, I mean, they don't play them, they're in UEFA, so I'm interested to see the game plan for sure for that, and it still boggles my mind. Your favorite saying boggles my mind. Why Scaloni doesn't put Simeone in? I mean, he doesn't have to start because I know McAllister, Rodrigo De Paul, and Enzo are going to start because they're more quality and they fit better in that midfield with Messi for sure. But it's crazy to me that he hasn't played Simeone there because I'm a Barcelona fan. You know this. I watch La Liga, through and throughout, and I see Simeone play for Atletico, and man, this guy is just like a firecracker. He brings that energy. He's fast. He's smart with the ball, and he'll dive and do the dirty work for you, just like his dad. So it's crazy that he hasn't been playing this game, and I think he's that energy that Argentina need, as a substitute. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be, scoring a hat trick or giving you assists left and right, but he's someone that he's on your bench for a reason. And, you should play him. I think he's a valuable asset, and moving forward, I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, their forwards, other Julian and Lautaro hasn't provided anything this tournament. So, like I said, without Di Maria, it's been tough for Messi and whoever his partner is up front to rely on each other. And so I'm interested to see what happens. Against the Swiss. They're no joke. They cannot take them lightly like they did with Egypt and Cape Verde. And so if the Swiss can beat Colombia, they can for sure beat Argentina. They know their game plan. They know how to play well with each other, and it's it's not going to be as easy as people think it is, where they think it's scripted. Trust me, don't take any.
Yeah,
You're in the final eight. Don't take any opponent
yeah.
lightly.
Oh yeah, you don't make it to the quarterfinals of a competition if you're not at least somewhat decent. The Swiss men, it might they're tough to break down. They don't give up many goals themselves. They're comfortable within themselves. A lot of those guys have played a lot of matches together. They've played a lot of minutes. They've beaten a lot of quality teams over the years. Yeah, it's definitely not going to be a walk in the park, man. Like, Argentina's going to have their hands full yet again. I mean, I'm sure, Argentina will have the majority of the support within the stadium, and they'll have that advantage in a certain sense. But I don't think the Swiss are going to mind. They'll be comfortable in that. It would not surprise me if it goes 120 minutes. It really wouldn't.
Yeah.
The Swiss might not win, but they'll make it tough. It's not gonna be some cakewalk or something like that. Like you said, if Argentina make it through, it'll be another credit to them because Switzerland's a good side. Um, but just kind of before we put a ball on this. I do want to get your thoughts just again, maybe again on the rest of the tournament. I know you talked about, Mexico, Spain, Argentina. We talked about a couple of other teams, obviously. Um, but any other teams or players that have really stood out to you throughout the tournament, and then as far as maybe looking on for the quarterfinals on. Maybe any predictions that you have or things that you're looking forward to for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, for players wise, I mean, the obvious, Erling is, it's funny because I listen to Telemundo more than Fox, and they call him the Terminator. And I mean, he really is, man. He's a freak of nature. I mean, what he did versus Brazil, just carrying them, and the first goal with the header. I mean, he's just a bigger dude than Gabriel. I mean, I know those guys face each other at least twice a year in Premier League, but he's just a bigger dude. He's just outmuscled him. And then that second goal, man, I mean, you can't. I know Erling doesn't shoot it from outside the box as much, but as a defender or midfielder, whoever's guarding him, you can't let him just walk in and then just shoot that ball. Because I mean, that guy just hit a rocket to the bottom right corner past Allison. I mean, he's been a stand. It's been a fun Golden Boot race for sure between him, Messi, and Mbappe. It's gonna come down to the wire for sure on who wins that. Other players that stood out, I mean, like I said before, Cucurella and Porro. It's funny, I had my doubts with them before on Spanish fullbacks, but they've proven me wrong. They've been Spain's best players other than Unai Simon. Um, for France, I mean, I think I told you this off air and with Malik too. Olise's game has just been taken to another level. I know he doesn't get the goals like Dembele or Kylian does, but he is their magician. He's their Messi, where he's the one that finds those holes and just plays those nice through balls. And then if he needs to, he'll shoot it. I mean, there's been times where he almost had goals of the tournament. I think with like a bicycle kick or a scissor
Oh
kick,
yeah, oh,
right? I think you know which one I'm talking about. Where I'm like,
oh,
man, bro,
oh
it's
yeah.
it's been an watch. He's out of my players that I or teams that I support outside of that. He's been my favorite player, to watch and see because I think I told you this before. Where it's like it's him and Lamine as the best young players coming in the future. It's been fun to watch him. I It's sad
Oh,
that he plays for Bayern and they have a gem there. I wish he would go to a different team, but it's nice to see that and him thrive. Um, Kane, of course. I mean, he's been Mr. England for sure. Sir Harry Kane, coming in clutch to save them one day or another. Um, and I'm looking forward to these round of eights. I Malik's gonna hate me, but I think that Morocco game is gonna be close. I still think France can pull away, and they will
oh
pull
yeah,
away.
Morocco's
But
not gonna bend over like that.
no,
Hell yeah.
not one bit. They're gonna give them hell, honestly, in a different type of way than Paraguay did. So, you know, I think France will win, but honestly, I really wouldn't be shocked if Morocco beat them because these guys are not only just they face each other in 2022, but they're nations, they're rivals too, from like a political standpoint. So it's gonna be a duel for sure. You know, Spain, Belgium, that will be a banger game, especially with the switches that Rudy Garcia has made. So this is elevated Belgium's play. So you can't take them lightly. Norway, England, I mean, that's a battle for sure between you know, two top
Oh,
scorers.
that's a great
It'll be
matchup.
yeah, I mean, who's gonna score more goals, Kane or Erling in that game? So that will be fun. And then of course Swiss and Argentina. I mean, it's no cakewalk for Argentina, even though on paper that might be the easiest quote unquote matchup for a nation to face. But it's gonna be fun, man.
Yeah, it's four great matchups.
I'm gonna have a fun time watching them, and we'll see what happens. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think all four of them are going to be competitive and tight. I mean, I think once you get to the quarterfinals, I mean, anybody can beat anybody. You mentioned Morocco. Yeah, Morocco's going to make it tough. I think, you know, um, Spain and Belgium. I'll be interested to see how Belgium looks in that. I think, Spain will still be the favorites, obviously, but it's not like they're playing, San Marino or something like that. I mean,
Right.
it won't be a complete cakewalk or anything like that. I think all four of them are going to be competitive. I think Norway and England is going to be really fun. Uh,
Yeah.
that could very well be a semifinal. Just
Yeah.
in the quarterfinals. I think that's going to be such a fun tactical battle, and um,
Oh,
you know,
another player that I forgot to mention that you said that has had a great tournament. I don't think he gets as much love because he's been a sub recently, but Oscar Bob, man,
oh
he
yeah.
he changes a lot of things for Norway that that at least in the Brazil game, he as soon as he came on the second half, everything changed on the right hand side with because I Sorloth, I know he's a great striker. He always kills Barcelona in La Liga, but he's not a right winger. He's not a natural right winger. So when the Norwegian manager made that sub, Oscar Bob, man, he took off. Like he ran with it and he changed the dynamic of that game. So I mean, good for City when Pep scouted him and brought him in. So good for them. And now Enzo will have a treat, off the bench for him. So he's been a great player, and Nusa too on the other side, their left winger.
Yeah.
He's
Oh,
had a
yeah.
great tournament too.
Norway, I know Holland gets a lot of the love and a lot of the headlines. I mean, rightfully so in some aspects, but it's not like it's him and a bunch of bums. Like you mentioned, these guys are really good.
Yeah,
Uh, oh, yeah, even Odegaard's fantastic. Like all
of
these
course.
different
Yeah,
guys. The keeper was great the other day against Brazil.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a good team, man. Like that's going to be a really good matchup. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if Norway beat England and make it to the semifinals. Um, I think it's going to be a really fun. If I'm not mistaken, it's 4 matches in 3 days. You get one Thursday, one Friday, and then two on Saturday.
yeah. Yep.
It's going to be a treat for sure. Four really competitive matches, and I can't wait to come back. After each of them and chop it up with with yourself and see how they play out for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, and I mean, last note, if it is going to be Argentina and England on that semifinal, man, what history that is.
Oh
With
yeah,
the hand of God with Maradona, the political battle with the islands, that will be fun if that does happen to fruition. That will
yeah. I
be
mean, shit. If it happens, you're gonna get a lot of I mean, I think you're gonna get a lot of people within FIFA and the TV networks that are gonna be really happy about that. Obviously, I mean, I think, I mean, that's like the dream match. For those guys is Argentina and England. I think they pretty much said as much. To be honest with you, like I think that's what they want.
yeah, of
I'm
course.
pretty sure that's what I'm pretty sure. So um, if it does end up being that, I mean, I mean, it would be one hell of a semifinal for sure. But you know what? Norway and Switzerland, one or both of them absolutely can win those. And it wouldn't surprise me if at least one or both of them end up winning those matches. But if it does end up being Argentina, England, like you said, I mean that goes without saying. I mean that'll be appointment viewing for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, banger game if that happens. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Everything looks pretty on paper, but until players hit the ground, running, nothing's guaranteed.
Cheers to it, man. Can't wait to. We'll definitely have to get another one of these going ASAP. But this was a good starting point for us, and we'll continue to come back here throughout the rest of the tournament, and especially with the big quarterfinal matches coming up with Spain against Belgium, and then Argentina and Switzerland. Come back and get your thoughts on both of those, and the other two matches, of course, as well with Norway, England, and then Morocco, France.
Absolutely. Can't wait for it, man. Always a
Can't wait.
pleasure.
Always a pleasure, man. Much love, and then we'll definitely we'll chop it up on here real soon, man. Till next time.
All right. Next time, man. See you soon.
See you soon, brother.